Welcome back for another Kerbal Space Program 2 video. This time we're going to do Duna Combined. But I've been flying these missions and running into some bugs that I've had to work around, and this video just keeps ballooning bigger and bigger. And so I figured we're going to split it up into a few objectives, and hopefully I can fit all of getting this thing built in orbit into this video. I've been playing Kerbal Space Program 2 constantly. I think I already have 100 hours in. I've really been enjoying it overall, but the few bugs that are around are soul crushing. And so I really appreciate you tuning in and checking out this adventure. I would love a like and a subscribe if you're enjoying what you see here. Let's see if we can't avoid the Kraken and get ready to go to Duna. I've been trying to make a greater effort to actually record footage while I'm playing this game, so let me know if you're enjoying that. And I do some voiceover while I'm flying missions, but often I forget to put my headset on or I don't want to, so I do a lot of voiceover after it's all recorded. Let me know what you think of that, because I'm open to opinions. Sometimes I get a little hypercritical about myself in my tenses, like, oh, is this past tense because I'm recording it in the future, and I guess it doesn't really matter to me if you folks don't care. Well, this giant launch vehicle that I've blabbered through here is something I'm super proud of and annoyed by at the same time. It works really well, and technically the bottom stage has some reusability capabilities, but in practice, I'm having some trouble switching between vehicles or letting me control it. So, for all intents and purposes, it's disposable right now. And as you'll see soon, I'm actually going to have to quit using the launch vehicle for now. And I think it's because it has struts to hold the two halves together. And some Kraken problems seem to ensue from payloads deployed by this guy. So it's like a infectious Kraken parasite to anything it launches, unfortunately. One interesting bug I've been having to work around a lot is when you undock spacecraft, if they're autonomous with a probe, they you totally lose control, and it says no comnet. And for a while, I thought I was building things wrong, or maybe the comnet was more sensitive in KSP2 or more particular. But what's actually going on is some kind of glitch, and how you fix it is you quick save and quick load, and then what do you know, comnet's back up, you've got control again. So overall, this launch vehicle, I'm super happy with it. It does a decent job of delivering and ferrying the payload around in space, and it actually re-enters pretty decently without any of the heat physics. I'm not sure how it will do when they add that in. But I'm maintaining control at least until I hit the thicker air, and then for whatever reason or once I start to hit air at all, I guess, it flips around totally backwards. I find when you're flying down backwards, if you invert the controls on your flight surfaces, it gives you a lot better control. This thing actually has landing gear on it, but it's been coming down over the ocean. I've not been being super careful about where I'm re-entering, and I'm also kind of still learning how much drag it's going to have on its way down through the atmosphere. I just decided I was going to do a propulsive landing, but I decided way too late, and I cannot believe how this landing goes. I don't know what happened there, but I'm counting that as a perfect landing. That's a win. Completely recovered. And here is where the Kraken struck. When I went to check on my payload and clean up all my orbital debris, it's on a very steep impact trajectory with the surface for no reason, and it's also at a much higher orbit than I left it, and I have no idea why. I decided it's probably related to my fancy launch vehicle or something to do with the struts, and so I decided I'm just going to go back to my heavy launch vehicle that took us to the moon. When I was flying this to the Mun, I used 4 of the smaller solid rocket boosters. On this one I had to upgrade it to these big ones, but they did a good job of getting these larger modules into space. So I had to put a new fuel module into orbit, and now I'm going to launch the propulsion module. Same launch vehicle, and then I'll just meet them up and I'll start to link together my space train. Unfortunately, when I was naming my spaceship, I triggered that pressing the M button goes to the map and you're suddenly controlling a vehicle bug, which it was supposed to be fixed in the first patch, so I guess I'm amazing and somehow triggered it. And it did cause that vehicle to go to 30% thrust, so I do think that that is what's happening that's causing my vehicles to be suddenly out of fuel, is when I'm going back to the VAB and building, I'm accidentally activating the throttle on these spaceships. We'll just throw this propulsion module in a fairing and take flight. This launch vehicle is very simple but reliable, and it doesn't involve a single strut anywhere in the vehicle. So I'm just going to kind of quickly cut through getting this thing into space and rendezvousing with the other module. I tried docking a few times with the propulsion module, but I found that it's just too massive and I put too few thrusters on it for it to really be a practical, independent spacecraft for these kind of maneuvers. So I switched to the fuel tank, and that is much lighter comparatively, and I was able to swing it around and get them hooked together. Couple more modules for this monstrosity. We need a lander of some kind, and we're going to need a control vehicle, and we're going to need some kind of reentry vehicle as well. So you'll notice my modules are all screwed up in their symmetry mode. They're all flipped around inside each other. The fuel section has the docking port sideways. I noticed and fixed the lander, but I totally missed that, and I didn't notice till I got the whole vehicle combined that the docking ports inside the fuel module are all crooked. I'm not sure if the bug happened in flight or if it happened in the builder, but in either case, I don't think it'll affect long-term operations, and I'm not going to fly all this stuff again. And on that note, next up is the command module. This is basically just living quarters and control systems for the crew. I'm going to send a crew of 4 up, and they will be my Duna explorers. The Duna lander itself that's already docked up there, I tried to build it kind of oversized, thinking they're going to have to live in there for quite a while, so that's why it's built using the hitchhiker can. The orbital living module itself is way oversized for 4 people, but they're going to be spending a lot of time in deep space, and my plans for this big vehicle, if I can get it to work, is to just be able to fly up new fuel to it and keep flying it back and forth between Kerbin and Duna. But we'll see if the Kraken doesn't claim this vessel. Everything's lined up for docking. I'm trying to keep everything lined up well enough that maybe I can even put 2 of these together long ways. We'll see. I'll be happy if this thing just gets to Duna. Looking good all together, even with the weird glitch on the fuel can in the middle. Time to send up a crew. I never did show a clear shot of that fuel can glitch, so I'll show one at the end of the video, but I don't think it'll affect the overall mission. I'm painting up a new crew vehicle, and then I'm going to pick out a crew of 4. Valentina has to go, because she was one of our first Kerbals to the moon, and then I'm just going to kind of randomly pick 3 other names that are humorous to me. For our crew, we've got Valentina, Bartman Kerman, Kerbro Kerman, and Kerdun Kerman. I haven't decided yet if this crew vehicle is going to come all the way with me to Duna, or if it's just going to take up the crew, and then when I get back to Kerbin, I'll circularize again and meet it with another vehicle. Because that would be nice to be able to reuse this thing. A lot of it's going to come down to how much the Delta V number in the builder was lying to me, and how much the Kraken comes up, and how much I just generally screw up at plotting my transfer to Duna. But that'll all be next episode. I'm making my approach here for docking using the I, J, K, and L keys to move the retrograde indicator in this case around on the nav ball. Scooching my way away from it. I'll get a good angle and use time warp and until I can get lined up with that target. Everything's looking good here as my crew of 4 moves in and docks with our combined Duna spacecraft. Approach is looking good. Overall, I'm really happy with how this turned out, and it wasn't too hard to fly all these missions, especially once I went back to my simpler launch vehicle. It's really weird, but I think that glitches attributed with the launch vehicle were carrying on into the spacecraft once in orbit. Just finished moving my Kerbals over into the combined spaceship, and like I said earlier, I haven't quite decided yet if I'm going to try to bring this little tugboat along or if I'll leave it here and just plan on bringing this back into a proper orbit. Here you can see the docking port problem. I don't know what happened here, but the docking port on the side of that hydrogen tank and the little one inside of the truss, they both got rotated halfway. It's so weird. I'm not sure what happened there. Overall, this is really solid altogether, and I should be able to stack them up horizontally and expand this if it ends up being successful. It should be able to be scaled up. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please like if you haven't already and subscribe or make sure you're subscribed. That would be awesome. Thanks for watching to the end, and I'll catch you in the next one when we're going to try to fly this thing to Duna. Fingers crossed.